to do it a little early. We are live. Wonderful. Oh, that's not actually a bad photo. This way I can see what people ask. You know.
Sometimes we get kind of watching videos as this guy was talking about. It's in one of the mini museums in Israel. But they have the giant spheres that they dug up in one of the orchards.
Oh yeah.
And he was talking about how massive they are.
She's committed
There's no
to
way
a
a
whole bunch
regular
of
human
stuff for
person
all in
from
Sunday at Abram.
6 feet down would have a sphere this size. And it wasn't decorative because it has gouges in it like it was used in battle.
Yeah.
And he says, massive. He says, he had his video going. And he says, the video from my phone isn't
Yes,
doing
it
the size
is.
justice. So let me know. So he basically made some cardboard cutouts. And he goes back to his office and says, this is the size. He says, I'm sitting here at my desk. This is the size of the sphere. Massive.
Yeah.
I guess they found a plethora of them in like an orchard area.
Yep.
So you're familiar with it.
And most of them, and the official party line is that, just want to let you know, in terms of Melchizedek, that's what I'm going to be saying, but I sent this over to Brian to make sure that we're saying, because, you know, those are things that need to be mentioned, you know, but I'm using you as a joke, so.
Oh, okay.
I'd like you to know, you know, it was planned, intentional, malice and forethought.
So we have several kinds here.
Oh, danger, Robinson.
We have our cranberries. We have our heart healthy mix, also with cranberries.
And we have seeded watermelon,
Oh.
which I have tried to remove as many seeds as possible.
I will go over there and eat one because I've got the camera on. It's not a good idea.
So we have-
And I have like tons of it.
And we have
So-
omega-3s.
Did they ever tell you as a kid if you eat the watermelon seeds, they'll grow in your stomach?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
That's why you put it in like a smoothie or a juicer and you're fine.
You know, I've been doing it
Yeah.
every day since February 1st. Every day. I put a whole lemon in a blender, a little bit of almond milk, and some blueberries. Every day. Feels terrific. Amazing.
I threw you radish in there because you'll get a bite.
A radish?
Yes. People laugh at me because I put
With the lemon
radishes.
I'll try it.
I put radishes in my smoothies.
Mhm.
It's like,
Oh,
but
yeah.
no, it gives it a really nice bite to it. It's like, yum.
Yeah.
Huh?
And radishes are
Have
so
you
good.
tried rum with that?
I'm sorry? No.
And I'm not a big fan of ginger either, but there are times when ginger's real subtle and I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, Denise, if you would not mind, I would like to hide this and eat it after the study. I'm usually ravenous after teaching and like that.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't handle it being messy.
Okay.
I don't want to pick out too much because I don't.
No, I don't know. This may be it. I think Bill and Paul are coming. Otherwise, we're going forward.
Okay.
I
So,
want to get through 12 chapters tonight.
well,
Yo, yeah, maybe 14. We're never
You're
sure.
not ready for that. Oh, yeah, save your nuts too.
Yep. No, it's, okay. You know, hell, most of the gang is here. Okay, no one has signed in yet, so we're good. Hey, guys,
I'm gonna check my phone, see if anybody else.
we're gonna have low attendance. By the way, Diana is up north. Nicole has had her baby. Mommy and baby are doing fine.
congrats. How did Diana get up there?
Not a clue.
Okay.
No. Harry kept jerking her chain about it. He'd run into her in the gym and, did you go yet? And, well, you should get so-and-so to drive you up, or you should get, just get on a plane and go.
Yeah, get on a plane, take the shuttle, and tell them to pick you up in, in the middle of Fort Collins or something. I mean,
Right.
I don't know.
Sounds easy.
Waiting until I'm allowed to
I
show
don't know.
up.
And I don't know about Tia and Eric. They might come.
I keep it in my pocket all day at work. I mean, my office key's on it too, but I
You
keep
never
it.
know when you're gonna need
You
it.
don't, and I keep my car keys in my pocket in case they evacuate the hospital. I'm ready to go. I'm not gonna.
Good. Just make sure you take a picture of your driver's license.
I do. I have, well, oh yeah, I don't have my driver's license. I have my car insurance, my registration. And Harry, I have to say, I can't read tonight. Those names, those names. Kill me. I'm trying at home to read them. There's too many to Google the pronunciation. It's like,
Okay, I hope he starts the other way around.
If it's any if it's any help, I already have in my notes, Genesis 14, 5 through 7. Those are the names. It says, yeah, read it, Bill. What does that say right there?
do not ask Paula to read.
Really?
Does it really?
No. Oh, read this passage. Harry, read it. Yes,
Okay,
good.
good.
Chris could read it.
Yeah.
Chris could do it.
Well, Harry, maybe that's why nobody came.
Chris will name his next
They
group
looked
of
at what you were
children.
gonna do.
Right
Yeah.
off of there.
There are times I read the Old Testament, like, that'd be a cool dog's name.
Well, you know what? We had some friends in
Whatever, however
Maryland
you
that we
want.
went to see, and their
Otherwise, it
daughter,
feels like, yeah, well, I
their
was
daughter
thinking
named their dog. They had a big
One more ball.
pit bull, big dog, bulldog. The name was Malachi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool. Except they called it Hoghead.
How do you go with that?
Now, who
Because he
did
had a big old
watermelon?
meat
What a
head.
nice treat. Who did the, did you do the?
Denise.
Oh,
Yes.
how nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing good.
My big male mastiff passed back in February, and he was 13 years old. It was time. But we're gonna give ourselves a little bit of a break. I'm a big dog person. I like big dogs. Dogs that actually have a purpose.
Oh,
Yeah.
like, are you talking
Like he
stuff
sleep-
about our little chihuahua?
Like he sleeps by the back door in his dog bed, and actually since he died, it's different at night. Like in my mind, I'm like,
Yeah,
this 140-pound guy isn't by the back door where his dog bed
Right,
was at night anymore. Man, that was a nice feeling.
yeah.
So I wake up to
Yeah.
little noises
And
now.
I'm thinking he probably wasn't even very aggressive, was he?
Maybe.
Once you're in the
Depends.
house, he was great, but outside the fence, oh man.
Because-
Matter of fact, the blocks, so I got those cat blocks on my
Right.
block wall, just
Right.
the top ones are so loose from the landscaper guys and the bug spray guys from being at the neighbor's house walking down their side. He would just run and he'd hit the wall, bam! And
Wow.
all those blocks are now loose.
No.
Yeah! So I'm still cleaning up his mess.
Yeah.
What
But-
was his name?
His name was Kane,
King.
but if I ever get another, he was a South African Borbal Mastiff. So if I ever get another one, I think the next one I'm gonna name him Judah. Or something cool like Malachi or
Well,
Uriah. That's a cool name.
I've always wanted about that type of dog and name it Kitty. Go here, kitty, kitty, kitty. It'll be massive, fluffy or something.
Yeah, but hands down, the best dog I've ever been around, ever owned, hands down, ever,
Really?
ever. He was just brilliant, just so smart.
What'd you
So
say he was?
he's a South African Borbal Mastiff.
I've seen those, but don't some of them have the tails docked on them?
His didn't, but many of the breeders do.
Yeah.
It's a breeder's preference.
Right, because I was thinking I've seen them, but they have that. And those are pretty massive dogs.
Yet they still breed true. They still all have tails.
He would always freak out because I put down this big bowl of food on
You're
the
so
ground,
good
and
with
he'd sit
snacks.
there
Heart
and he'd
healthy.
watch me. I'd even walk away, come back 10
I
minutes
really
later,
didn't
he'd
get a
sit there.
chance to
And I'd snap
stop.
my fingers in the
Oh.
It turned out
Every time.
great.
And
I
it
was
turned
trying-
out perfect.
I always wanted a Belgian Malinois.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbor has 3.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh my
But
goodness.
those dogs, man, you have to exercise them so much. You can't just let them sit because they're gonna tear stuff up because they're just high energy. you
Well, they're a
know?
working dog.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I would never be able to do that dog justice, be able to work them enough, it'd be like too much. They said you have to work them like 7 to 8 hours a day. But
Wow.
He
You're like,
does.
I don't even work.
He does.
I know.
Yeah.
If there was some way I could say, hey, go work out.
If you can
Yeah.
get him to somehow lay board straight.
So yesterday on my way to work, so I worked over in IPOC and I'd go around the back way. And there's this little park, so people always walk there, they walk their dogs. So yesterday on the way to work, I saw this guy walking his dog, although the dog was standing on top of the fire hydrant.
Oh my
On
goodness.
top of the fire hydrant.
How
And
big
I'm
was the
thinking-
dog?
It was pretty big.
Wow.
It was big.
Jeez.
And I'm thinking, oh, I so need to turn around and take a picture of this. These people are not going to
Yeah.
believe me. But I didn't.
Oh.
Well, we saw, where was it that we saw a pony in the back of that pickup?
When we were in New Hampshire, we were going, I think we were going to Walmart or going to the
okay.
grocery
Yeah.
store, and it was pulling over by the gas station, and they had a little pony in the back of the, not in the
Not
back
in-
of the
not in-
pickup,
in
in the
the-
back seat
in the
of the
back
pickup.
seat.
In the back
And
seat?
And the
Yeah.
pony had its little head out the
Yeah.
window. It was pretty
Not
cute.
in the- Yeah, not in the bed of the
God.
truck.
Yeah.
Probably
Just
did one
like
of those.
taking a big
Back seat.
sign.
Yeah, yeah.
Aw.
Am I-
He just-
am I-
Yeah, yeah, a little pony with his head hanging out the window, and it was like, what? We're-
Okay. Oh, goodness. Doug and Patty. Glad you could join us.
Actually missed like. Tuesday.
Okay, we are coming up almost on start time.
Oh.
2 minutes early.
Yeah, 2 minutes early. Currently, we've got James, Patsy, Laura, Doug and Patty back in Virginia, I believe. And the news for the group that Diana is up north. Her daughter had the baby. Mommy and baby are doing fine. Not too sure how grandma's doing, but we'll hear about that next week, I'm sure.
I'll text her and ask her if she has a prayer.
Pat's going to text, in case you didn't hear it, text Diana to see how everything's going, see if she has a prayer request. But tonight we are a little bit skosh on people. I will go around once. Chris is not eating this time. So you can see we're a little bit short. So next week, Pat and I will take care of snack. I decided once I learned how sparse we're going to be on the ground, figured give ourselves a little bit of time. Okay, we are 1 minute to go. And we'll be starting the review in Genesis 13:10. And yes, I know the names are tongue twisters. I've already been requested to read a couple of sections to make sure that everything is really messed up. But tonight we're going to be looking at first the division between Abraham and Lot. And I sent out the photo earlier in the week of from Ai, looking down into the Kakar, or the delta of the Jordan, where Sodom, I believe, is located. Because you couldn't see the other potential sites from where they were standing looking east. We'll talk about that as review. Then we're going to go to the Middle Bronze Age and warfare, always something I enjoy talking about. Then we're going to get to probably one of the toughest part of scriptures. Who and what is a Melchizedek? And what do those portions of scripture mean? And Lord willing, we'll be getting into chapter 15 and the Abrahamic covenant. So we got a lot of territory to cover tonight. And since we're now at 6:30 and are officially started, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for an opportunity to open your word, the book of beginnings, Genesis. Help us to rightly divide the word of truth. Help us to serve you. Help us to see Jesus in your word, even in the Old Testament. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, by way of review, we got through Genesis 13:10 last time. Well, just to recap for folks that weren't here before. Abram begins here in Ur of the Chaldees. He went up to Haran on the bend, in the bend of the Euphrates in the north. His father Terah died there, and he came down following the trade routes down into what is Canaan, all the way down into the Negev, the desert south of the Central Hills. Brief stay in Egypt, where he acquired property, movable property, slaves, men servants, female servants, cattle, because he sold his wife to the Pharaoh. He's booted out, comes back with all his property. He and his nephew Lot are moving up and down in the Central Hill country. They are shepherds, but they're more than shepherds. If you are a non-native, you align yourself to some city. And as a pastoralist, that's a fancy word for somebody who tends sheep and goats, you're moving all the time around because you have to find fresh grass. And you keep yourself within, generally, the confines of that city's hegemony. Hegemony is a fancy word for he controls it, probably through some military. You're going to see tonight that Abram is a little bit more of a desert chic, if you will, than you usually see in flannel graphs of, or heaven help us, the movie Abraham. Abraham has a beard like this, and he's already bent over at the beginning of the movie. I'm sorry. This man is a man of action. He is a warrior. And as you'll see when we get down here into chapter 14, verses 13 to 17, he has 318 trained fighters among his little clan. The Egyptians would have called these people Aperu or Haberu, depending on the pronunciation. Nobody speaks ancient Egyptian, by the way. These are all guesses in pronunciation. But the Egyptians had a problem every time that they would push north and come out of Egypt, go across Sinai, and up in this region, they'd encounter something that was called the Shashu. That's a word, that's the Egyptian word for plunderers. Okay, these are people who would raid caravans. And since this is the main trade route, there are a lot of caravans. When the Egyptians are strong, they push these people further into the desert. When the Egyptians are weak, well, the plunderers get to plunder whatever caravans are coming through or exact a toll. In our Western movies, it would be the Cheyenne suddenly show up and want sugar, ammunition, and coffee. And if you give it to them, your train rolls on. If you don't pay the toll, they still get it, but your train stops moving. And most of you are dead.
Also pirates?
Also pirates, yeah. Yes, pirates is as good a way to say it as any. Okay, would he be trading with the locals during his journeys? Yes, Patsy, he would be trading as he's coming up and down, but he would be trading with the locals that he aligns himself with. And the locals he aligns himself with are in the southern part of the Negev. Now I'm going to shift to a little bit smaller map. He operates really between Beersheba and Hebron is his main area. Now he does go as far north as the Jezreel Valley on occasion, but mostly he's down here in the south, moving from waterhole to waterhole, grazing area to grazing area. But he also, if he's aligned himself with a city, his people can trade wool, they can trade leather goods, they can trade milk, yogurt, cheeses. These are the things the Bedouins trade, or the nomads trade with the townspeople. Townspeople give you things like pottery. Now, pottery is heavy. If you're moving around, it's not nearly as convenient as a leather bag. Leather bags are light. When they get empty, they're very light. Pottery stays just about the same all the time. But you do have to have it for some applications, like a fire pot. you keep the coals hot, and it's usually an eldest son's or a son of the chief's job to make sure the fire doesn't go out. Now, everyone knows how to make fire with a fire stick, but it's a lot easier to go, Habib, come here, open up the box, we need some coals here. That's much easier. And, it gives the kids something that's important to do, give them responsibilities. We all do that with our children. But it appears that Abram may have been part of the early warning system for the Jerusalem area, the Hebron area, and he also did raiding on the side. Because you don't have 318 guys who know how to use weapons unless you're using weapons fairly regularly. Yeah, we don't think of Abraham or Abram that way, but think of, as we read through chapter 14, think about, what does he really look like? Where is his brain? What is he doing? What are his people doing most of the time? He's much closer to David and his 600 men that were operating in the same general area than he is to a philosopher king or a sweet little old man with a gray beard. As we know, gray does not make you sweet at any level. Okay. Yeah.
Well, so the 318, would they have been strictly for protection, or were they multi-skilled men where they were hurting during the day and also they were armed as they walked around? Are we talking like 318 centurions and that was their sole role?
No.
Okay.
You don't have that specialization.
Okay.
You had more than, but he's able to field for a force that's going to travel up north in 3 days.
Okay.
318. Somebody's got to stay back and take care of the flocks and herds and protect the tents.
Mm-hmm.
So he has more men than 318.
Right.
That's what he can put in the field.
Right.
But these guys are part-time shepherds, part-time enforcers, part-time raiders if the opportunity presents itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different kind of, it's very much like the Bedouin cultures that would have been depicted without the camels. These camels don't do well in the hill country. In Lawrence of Arabia, the guys live to fight, and your pay for fighting is spoils. What you kill, you take. Yes.
So can we assume those 318 men have families?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to imagine a group of at least 800 or 900 people.
Yeah. This is really a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of recorded, in history, there are a couple of recorded migrations of tribes in the Transjordan in the 1820s and 30s, where over 2,800 people with all their flocks and herds traveled on a broad front military formation with riders in the front on camels, the main body with the flocks and herds, rear guard and flankers. I mean, it's very much like a military movement. And as they hit different villages, the villages were kind enough to give them whatever they wanted. And they went on. If they didn't, they still got whatever they wanted. The village just wasn't there. And there are the British guy that was summarized in the book I was reading was appalled at this. It's like, no, if you are physically, militarily stronger in an Arab culture, you dominate and you get bashish is the Arabic word. It just means bribe. But you take a bribe, you take a tax, and everybody is happy. They don't pay the tax, you're still happy, but they're not. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Does that? Yeah, but it's a much larger thing than just warriors. The wives, kids, the flocks, herds. He's managing all this, and he has no sons. And in a Bedouin culture, if you don't have sons, his heir just left, went east. Lot went down to Sodom in the nice green lowlands of the Jordan Valley. That's a long introduction. Okay.
So question on that.
Sure.
Up until this point then, would they have been figuring Lot was his heir?
Oh, yeah. That's part of why he would have brought him with. He did not have his own son. So, okay, right of succession is first natural born child. If you do not have a natural born child, you adopt. Surrogate mother. We'll see that in a few chapters later. The other option is a nephew or other male relative, cousin, second cousin, whatever, that you can leave all your property to.
So when Sodom is destroyed, does Abram know that Lot lives through it?
No. He goes and hides. Lot is going to hide from the destruction of Sodom.
So, it's because they could still drag Lot back to be the heir.
They could. But the events in chapter 14 make him a less qualified
Oh,
heir than
absolutely,
they know.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
less qualified heirs happens all over the world, right?
Oh, yeah. By the way, hi, Scott and Maria. Glad you could join us. They just signed in, so I thought I'd say hello. Okay, Chris, if you could read chapter 13, 14 through 18, and then we'll start moving into it.
And the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and took from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see I give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give to you. Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord.
Okay, he's in the middle of the land initially. He's at Ai, where he has already built an altar previously. He and Lot split. Lot goes east, downhill and east. And God speaks to him again. The Holy Spirit, as we understand it, indwelling was not the normal situation of believers in the Old Testament. There were occasions when God spoke directly to people, and the prophets record some of these. And Abram is technically a prophet because he's getting the word of God and he shares it with his clan. But he's told, walk up and down the land, just what they've been doing. They've been moving their flocks and herds up and down the land. Everywhere you put your foot has been promised to him. He is on the west side of the Jordan River. We do get boundaries that exceed that. But at this point, this promise is where you put your foot is yours. The same thing happened, the same promise is made to Joshua, the book of Joshua. And he goes south to the tamarisk trees of Mamre. Mamre means richness. So this is a green area. It has several wells, but it isn't a city at this point. It's a village, probably a wall around it, but it's not a town per se. But he builds an altar to the Lord and presumably sacrifices. Okay, by popular demand, I'm going to read the next few verses. At this time, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elazar, Kedalamar, king of Elam, Tidal, king of the Goyim, went to war against Bela, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Adam, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, the Dead Sea. For 12 years they had been subject to Kedorlaomer. In the 13th year they rebelled. Anybody want to take a crack at summarizing what those verses mean? Okay. First off, let me introduce you to the players. And yeah, I had to build a script for tonight to make sure I didn't get these wrong. Okay. Amraphel, king of Shinar. Shinar is the plain along the Euphrates and Tigris where Babylon is built. So he's from Babylon. His name is Semitic, so he's not a native-born king. This is in the old Babylonian, it's old Babylonian kingdom. And since he's named first, he's in charge. The next king, Arioch, is in the king's list from the Middle Bronze Age. Several Ariochs appear. He's the king of Mari on the Euphrates River. This is a city-state upriver from Babylon, not all the way to Haran. Kedorlaomer, he's an Elamite, Persian. And at this time, the Persians were raiding whoever they could, but they're allying themselves here for really a revenge raid. And Tidal, king of the peoples, is the paramount leader of the Goyim. All that means is, Goyim's a Hebrew word for the peoples. These are a Hittite group up on the Anatolian plain in Turkey. So why are these guys coming together? For profit. During a very brief period, about 300 years, no single city-state or empire was strong enough to control all of Mesopotamia. And these kings represent the major people groups in Mesopotamia. You have, starting up in the northwest, you've got Turkey, the Hittites. He's present. Coming down the river, you run into Mari. That's in the middle of the Euphrates. It's a trade depot in the middle. Coming down, you have Babylon, Shinar. You have Elam in the east, the Persians. It appears that Amraphel, the king of Babylon, wants to punish the kings of the valley, kings of the Jordan River, and most of Canaan for rebellion. They paid tribute for 12 years. They stopped. In the 13th year, they rebelled. Rebellion means they didn't send the tribute they were supposed to Amraphel. He contacts his fellow kings and says, okay, I have to go and punish some rebels. If you will send your forces with me, we're not talking huge forces. We're, 500-600 men per kingdom. We're going to go on a raid. We're going to punish these kingdoms, and we're going to collect a lot of booty. Since they failed to pay tribute to me, whatever we get, we'll divide, and whatever, it doesn't say what their proportions are. I'm tempted to say everybody gets a quarter, but Amraphel might, because it was his territory, might want 40% and everybody else gets 20%. Anybody want to guess what sort of products they'd be going after?
I would say probably food sources, wouldn't it?
Well, it's a food source, but more important things are down there. What happens in the Sinai? What do the Egyptians get from Sinai?
No, we talked about this last time.
Yeah. Okay. Copper.
Oh, copper.
The copper mines of Sinai. Copper mines of the Phaon Valley in Jordan. The Egyptians collect their copper Wadi Fayon is right in this region, what is called Edom here, but it's on the east side of the Rift Valley. The Timnah is down in here in the desert of Paran, and that's where the Egyptians mined. But they collected all of their goodies at Kadesh Barnea, so that they could then transship it to the coast and move it to Egypt. They also mined turquoise and lapis lazuli, which is a beautiful blue stone you can polish. So there are good things in the desert. And we know that the Egyptians were there during this period because there's a temple that at least the overlords and the guards built to Hathor, and it says in which pharaohs they were working the mines. This is again Old Kingdom, or Middle Kingdom rather, of Egypt. You're in the 1900 BC period, but they collect before they transship to Egypt at Kadesh Barnea. That's important when you start looking at the route these folks are going to take. Now, what about the people that are in the valley? The leader, remember, whenever you've got a leader, he always shows up first. King Bela is it? King Bera of Sodom. Sodom is listed first. Tel El-Hammam is about an 80-acre sized city. If it's Sodom, Sodom would be the biggest one in the area. Birsha, king of Gomorrah. Gomorrah is another tell that has been excavated. It's about 7-8 kilometers away. You have Shemer, king of the Zeboim. The Zeboim just means the twins. And there are 2 twin tells uphill from the valley slightly, but the tells exist, and they're about the same size. They cannot be excavated because they're on a Jordanian military base. So, not a good place for Americans to go digging. And finally, King Bela of Zoar. Now, Zoar, there's a couple of locations for that. The traditional one is on the southern end of the Dead Sea. However, if you go further north, the border that will become Moab. Moab doesn't exist at this point. This is pre-Moab, pre-Edom, pre-Ammonites. So, we kind of kludge them all together, but this is early. This is before they got there. Zoar is probably on the Arnon River, where it comes out of the central highlands of Jordan.
So people have this map. It's not accurate.
No, unfortunately, as Pat pointed out, this map is not the most accurate. You'll notice I've done a slight amendment here. I probably should have included Zoar on that amendment. But that location dates back to Albright. Albright is the father of biblical archaeology, and he tended to pontificate as to where things were. Wasn't as bad as St. Helen, but close. Okay, before I go on, are there questions out there? I've been throwing a lot of names, numbers. Are there questions out there? Because everybody here, with the exception of Pat, is being quiet, which is very disconcerting.
I don't even know what to ask.
I'm with you. I'm a little
Let me
confused.
sum it up for you. There's one king with his 4 allies
And one
from the
king
north,
with his
one
4
king
allies.
with his 4 allies from the south.
Yeah,
Where
pretty
they're
much.
about to have a battle, a
Yeah,
raid in the battle.
But the guys from the north are coming all the way from the Persian Gulf.
It's still
and the
north.
Zagros Mountains.
So they wanted to get out of town for a
Yeah.
while.
Okay, yeah. Okay, scene's pretty much set. No, I'm not gonna do that to Denise. She'd hit me.
Would you like me to read?
Yeah, you've heard most of these names before.
I can make them up.
Yeah, you can make them up. Okay, how about 8 through 12?
What about 5?
We
Yeah.
didn't do 5 yet.
Okay, do 5. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, 5 through 7.
Okay. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Rephaites in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzites in Ham, the Emites in Shavah Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran near the desert. Then they turned back and went to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living in Hazazon Tamar.
Okay. Anybody want to try that one?
No.
Okay, fortunately, my notes have done that. Okay. Rephaim of Ashtaroth, Karnaim, Zuzim of Ham, Imil of Shavker, and the Horites of Mount Shur, El Paran. Yeah. Okay, let me give you the blow by blow. They're coming south. They're coming on the King's Highway. They come south. They hit Damascus. They then come down on the King's Highway, following it along, and you get to Ham. In the battles that we've read about in the Syrian Civil War, you've heard of the city of Ham, H-O-M. H-O-M and H-A-M are believed to be the same location. So you're coming down north of Damascus, coming down, and they're hitting every town that they can along the King's Highway, going on the east side. They
When
come
you say
down.
hitting, do you mean raiding?
Raiding, yeah. These guys, the friendly king and his friends from Mesopotamia are here collecting slaves, collecting metal, collecting food, collecting wine, and whatever else they feel like. Anything like gold, anything like silver, anything like jewelry will be confiscated.
So it doesn't mean they killed them all, though.
No. Slaves at this period are worth about 20 shekels. Now, there'll be a slight increase by the time of Joseph, but we're not in the time of Joseph, or a little earlier, and the average price is between 15 and 20 shekels for a strong male. Women are slightly less. The older are much less expensive, because you can't get that much work out of people as they're old and gray. But
Does anybody find it scary that he knows how the prices of slaves changes?
And women. What's that compared to the worth today?
I don't know what a good Chinese smuggler is getting these days. But by the Roman Empire, it comes up to over 100 shekels.
What
It's
is
called
that?
inflation.
100 shekels to today's dollar. Just curious. I don't
Okay.
know.
Or wages for a day
Okay.
or
Yeah.
something.
Right. Something.
Okay, each shekel is approximately 0.2 ounces
Gold or
of silver.
Silver.
So 0.2 ounces, 50. You're about 10 ounces of silver. Silver price today is maybe 20, 25 bucks.
And your
So,
10 ounces,
you know.
not bad.
But then you got them forever. I mean, it's,
You've got to feed them, clothe them, and
or dispose of them. You can sell them. You can turn them out when you no longer feel like feeding them. You know, there is no social security in this system. You love your master. You may let him know that you love your master. Otherwise, he can do whatever he wants to. Okay, here comes the question.
Okay, so my question is, okay, obviously the men are going to be used for, their strength, their fighting abilities. What are the women used for? Outside of
Women, women.
The
Okay.
sexual
the
part.
obvious.
Okay, beyond sexual, that's
Cooking.
obvious, but any sort of household duties,
Having children.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they are literate and skilled, they could become tutors. They could weave, and a lot of women are doing weaving to make products that can be sold. That's still the case in Egypt. Young girls, before they marry, will work in carpet factories for 3 or 4 years, learn how to do this, and then they will do piecework after they got married at 14 or 15. Wonderful system. Yeah. But they also are used doing field work. Men not only are used to do heavy labor, who do you think digs these little pits, little holes and tunnels in the Sinai copper mines? That's less than an 18-month life expectancy. Yeah. And in the Wadi Fayan, some of those tunnels, if you're really stupid, you can go down them, go over 800 feet underground. They're following the vein.
Huh.
And they've got a little lamp to make sure they see the metal. Think about mining in those kind of conditions, where you've made a hole just big enough for you and your shoulders to get into, and you might have to back up to get out of that hole to get to when you can crawl out. This is a seismically active region. Copper mines of Sinai are not where you want to be sent.
That's why they have to get more
Oh, yeah.
volunteers every town they come and work.
That's why you get tribute and slaves.
Yeah. Okay.
And slaves, most of the time, okay, Scott liked, ha ha ha, dispose of them. You're a sick person, Scott. Just like me. Okay, are you seeing the world?
Yes, and thank you for the detailed explanation, because that helps me frame a picture in my mind.
Okay, that's what you get for this. Okay, they go to the Wadi Fayan on the east side, and they collect the products. There are smelters there. You don't just send raw ore back to Egypt. You do the smelting in the Wadi Fayan or at Timna. Timna being the main Egyptian source. Somebody's running mines in the Fayan at this time, and it's not Egypt. And there's a huge debate in archaeology who it was. Frankly, I don't care. They're probably Amorites. But they're pulling a lot of copper out. They're smelting it, reducing it to, they're called hides because they are shaped kind of like this, like a hide would, where you have 2 arms, 2 legs, and the main body, so that 2 guys can pick them up one at a time. They weigh about 60 pounds. These are put onto donkeys that can carry a whopping 4 hides per donkey and ship them off towards Egypt. But they're collected initially at Kadesh Barnea. So the raid goes first to Petra, which is the Horites of Mount Shur. Mount Shur is the other name for Petra of the Nabateans. Nabateans don't come along for another 1,500 years, but they built Petra, and it's the same location. Where water is, people go in the desert.
So where's El Paran?
Okay, El Paran. That's the wilderness of Paran. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me tell
It's down along the journey.
No,
Someplace.
It's over by Berlin.
desert of Paran, right there.
But they were up here.
They were up here, and they've raided all the way down. They hit, in this region, you would hit Petra, you hit the Wadi Fayan, and then you cross over the Rift Valley to hit Timna, which is in the desert of Paran, and then you come north to Kadesh Barnea, where the goodies have been collected for the Egyptians. Sorry, Egyptians, you're not getting everything that your slaves have worked for.
So they do their own collection of goodies, and then they go to the spot where there's another little stash of goodies already being collected to just top it off.
Yeah, yeah. And if you have tin, which the Hittites do, and you mix it in the right proportion with copper, you get bronze, which is a much better weapon than copper. Then you can make jewelry out of copper or whatever you want. Okay, after they have stolen all the Egyptian stuff, they go to a place that is called Hazazon Tamar. We know it better as En-Gedi. It's where the water, there's a constant spring at En-Gedi, and that's where David hides out from Saul, nearly 1,000 years later. But they wintered over at En-Gedi. That is on the west side, right about here, of the Dead Sea. Meantime, the people of Sodom here in the north are assembling their weapons, and they're going to fight the invading army when they come out of En-Gedi.
So how long did this, what we have in several verses, take in real life?
One campaigning season. They're moving fast.
So 3 or 4 months?
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be caught out there in the complete heat if you can avoid it. Not if you're bringing animals from Mesopotamia. They're not used to that kind of heat. At least not without water.
Not if you're on an air-conditioned bus either.
yeah. You don't want to step off of the bus. Okay. Do you think
No, Bill can read.
Bill can read? Okay.
Not taking any
I can
chances. You're
butcher
not
it. I
sucking me
can
into
butcher
this.
better than anybody.
Go for it. I'm
Well,
proud of you.
Okay, we've gotten to where I think you can do it. 14, 8 to 12.
Okay. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, the king of Bela, that is Zor, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim against
Kedorlaomer.
king of Elam, title king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits. And when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of them fell into them, and the rest fled into the hills. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food. Then they went away. They carried off Abraham's nephew, Lot, and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom.
Okay. What's translated as tar pits in most English translations in Hebrew is slime pits.
Ew.
And what I think is being described is the sinkholes alongside the west side of the Dead Sea.
You've seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's why I sent that note out with the photos we took on our tour of the sinkholes, where one's in the middle of a driveway of what used to be a bathhouse, where you'd go and get a shower, get a beer, go down, lay in the Dead Sea, get out, get a shower, get another beer, and get back on the air-conditioned bus. But that's no more, because the sinkholes opened up and they opened up in the parking lot. They opened up on the roads. They've had to relocate the road along the Dead Sea. These occur only on the west side of the Dead Sea. The east side, you don't have that problem.
Why?
The Judean hills, as the Dead Sea has dropped, you have fresh water coming off the hills rapidly, and it percolates underground very rapidly. And it undermines the soil on the wider banks on the west side, and sinkholes are opening up. And there are over 3,000 of them currently in Israel because the Dead Sea continues to drop lower and lower. More of the area is undercut, and the sinkholes are going. Previously, when the Dead Sea was high, fresh water would sit on the top because it's less dense than the sea, and then slowly it turn over. Now, because of the lower water levels of the Dead Sea, the sinkholes are destroying much of the western side. This implies that at the time this battle happened, that the Dead Sea was low, similar, perhaps not as low as it is now, but in a low phase for the sinkholes to exist. Because there aren't any tar pits around the Dead Sea. I've been on both sides of it. Can't say I've been all the way around the bottom on the Jordanian side, but I've been all the way down to Baba Draw and Turk Inlet, and there are no sinkholes on the east. There are only sinkholes on the west. And Denise, you've seen them. What would you describe them as?
Oh. When you see the news reports and you see that there's a sinkhole that's developed and vehicles or houses have fallen in, that's the size of them. They're huge and they just you don't even want to wander into that area.
And there are warning signs all along the route, pretty much from Masada north. Sinkhole area, do not walk out there. What I think is being described in this battle is the warriors from, I'll call it the Jordan River Coalition, are trying to block the Mesopotamians from coming north. Well, they lost the battle and they fled. And they're running away from their enemy, and they have fled into areas where there are sinkholes that haven't been exposed yet. When you have too many people run over the top of a sinkhole, a little thin crust of earth, suddenly you have a pit with people in the bottom of it. And since it's water-based, it's done the excavation, surprise, you have a slime pit. That's my understanding of what's in view. But go ahead.
So are tar pits mentioned anyplace else in the Bible?
No. Part of the reason they name it, they hypothesize this, is in the Romans called the Dead Sea the asphalt sea, the sea of asphalt, because you do have from the southern end globs of asphalt that would float up. It would be collected in antiquity and used for sealant, to seal jars. So they took, we know there's asphalt there, so it's obviously tar pits, because they're familiar with tar pits in England. Yes.
So where is the battle line then?
Okay, the battle line
Because
is
they're in Getty and Getty on,
okay.
and the others are coming down.
The others are about right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're on the east side of the Jordan. They probably crossed the Jordan where they could try and force them to go back south. So probably south of Jericho,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a fairly flat area there. A vale is just a flat area. I think it's south of Jericho, and
That's the battlefield?
that's where the battlefield was. Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's as far south as Qumran. It's not as far south as En-Gedi. That's where the bad guys are.
Well, but these guys are retreating and falling into these pits.
Yeah.
So it would have to be pretty far south.
Yeah, they'd have to have gone pretty well south, but they're fleeing. And that's the real problem with it. As you flee, you don't always pay attention to where you're running, other than they're chasing me, where can I hide? But it's a complete route. And I like the description of the fourth king seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, the two largest cities, and all their food. Now, they produced a lot of food in this valley. because it's well watered. Lot called it like the Garden of God, Garden of Eden. So they're growing food there. We'll discuss that changes. Right now, where we're excavating is a banana field. It's also where the Adowan tribe, which the leader of the Adowan tribe is graciously allows us to dig on his land for a fee.
Is that down by the Dead Sea?
It's north. It's about 9 miles north of the Dead Sea, and to the east, just where the hills turn brown, is where Tel El is. It still has 5 active springs. One of them is a hot spring, and one of the archaeologists, Scott Stripling, believes that hot spring was the location of the Roman city of Livy, rather, that was built in the same general area, but that was built in about 300 AD. So it wouldn't have been there. That was, 300 AD plus 17, about 2,000 years before is when this is happening. But Sodom is there. It's a major city. And right now they grow a lot of bananas and marijuana, and occasionally the Jordanian authorities have gunfights with the tribesmen. It's kind of fun to watch,
You're stuck.
It's a wonderful place. So they've taken everybody that they can from Sodom. Anyone who's worth stealing, they took as a slave, prisoner of war, if you will. And they would retreat from here back up to what is now, we would call it Amman, to get back on the King's Highway, and they're going back north. Fat, dumb, and happy, we're going to go back home, we'll divide the spoils, everybody gets slaves, everybody has copper, we're good. Life is good. And then you have the problem. I'll go ahead and read this one. One who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Anar, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, and together with the women and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Sheba, that is the King's Valley. Yes.
Okay, so this is just a stupid question on my part, but okay, together with the women and the other people?
Yeah.
What are their people, the men?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
The important people are Lot's family, Lot and the women, and then anybody else in Sodom that they happen to bring home.
Oh, so they could be women
Yeah.
or other people as well.
Yeah. But no, this is very Middle Eastern thinking. My nephew and his family are most important. We got Lot and his wife and kids, and everybody else. Yeah. Blood relation is blood relation. That's the most important thing. But all these people have been set free. This telling of the battle is pretty unique. It's the first time there's a night attack recorded in history.
Wow.
Now, they happened before, they're alluded to, but what Abram does is he's located down here in Hebron. The bad guys are going north on the east side of the river. He is going to go north on what's called the Way of the Patriarchs. going through what is Jerusalem, going through Bethel, going through Shechem, all these places he's been. He's been there. He's going north fast. And he gets up here, north of Hatzor is a place called Lash, Laish. At this time, it's a colony from Sidon. We know it as Dan. And this is one of those points where the Bible was contemporized so that you knew what they were talking about. Because everybody knew where the tribe of Dan settled up in the north. Abram went there on this raid. He goes through Dan, through Lash, and somewhere north of Damascus, he catches up to these 4 kings. They're moving slow. It is hard to motivate slaves to go into captivity. They don't want to walk fast. You can beat them. That's always fun. But, you're not feeding them well. And you're trying to figure out which ones you want to keep for you, right there, and which ones you want the other kings to get. So you're kind of looking at the human herd and seeing, well, which ones do I want? But you're moving slow. You're carrying some heavy metal, literally. You're carrying copper on donkeys. You have a train. It's going slow. Abraham is on foot. He and his army. They are scurrying up the central highlands all the way up to Tel Dan, up onto the Golan Heights. This is a distance of about 120 miles. He covers it in about 4 days. They're moving. Now, these are not the lame shepherd who threw out his knee. He ain't on this expedition. Then at night, they divide into 2 parts, at least, and hit them simultaneously. A night attack is difficult to organize with trained troops. These guys do it as a matter of course. We know how to hit caravans at night. This is not Abram's first rodeo. Probably as daylight ended, he scouted it, figured out how we're going to hit, sat down with his co-conspirators, Mamre, the brother of Eshcol and Aner, and they figured out how they're going to attack. They had to have some sort of signal that everybody would accept. It could be as simple as when Sirius rises, we attack. When the moon first crests over that hill, we attack. Some way to synchronize. They didn't have watches. But they hit, I would suspect, after midnight, because that's when the camp's asleep. You want panic. Panic is your friend if you're attacking somebody at night, especially if they have animals. Panic, fire, and arrows that you can't see coming are particularly useful at night. So they hit 4 different kings, and the 4 kings probably grab what they can, and they've already assembled what they're going to have. Because as you get north of Damascus, you start breaking off. The Hittite's going to go north. He may already have his goodies. The guy going to Mari may have his goodies. So there's probably 4 separate camps, so you take advantage of that. You cause them to panic and flee. Abram is only interested in Lot and his family. Everything else is secondary to him. If we can save the rest of Sodom and Gomorrah, great, but those 3, those 4 is what he's focused on. And he achieves that. They got a lot of goodies because as they attack this army, the army's going to be trying to take the goodies with them and still defend. That doesn't work well at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's dark. And if you don't expect to be attacked, and there's no reason to think the 4 kings had no reason to believe someone's coming after them. Surprise, night attack, panic. Oh, good. This works. But old, slow Father Abraham pulled this off. I just don't see him that way.
I mean, we know he's not being carried 120 miles over 4 days.
No.
That's 30 miles a day.
Yeah, and there's no mention of him riding on a donkey.
Right.
There's no mention of him asking God whether he should go either, though.
Oh, no, not at all. He makes his own decisions. Thank you very much. He is a desert sheep. And that's the image that I would go with. Okay. As they're coming back home, they're bringing all of the loot with them, and they're coming on the west side. They're moving through the Central Hill Country, and in verse 17, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Sheba. That is the king's valley. This is the valley of Jehoshaphat. We know it better as the Kidron Valley on the east side of Jerusalem. That's where Bela comes up from. Apparently Bela was not taken. He swore that, yes, I will send you tribute every year, I promise, and they let him stay. But they picked whoever they wanted for slaves and took them with. Probably the young men and women. But Bela comes to meet Abram as he's coming back south, heavily laden with very happy people and copper and whatever else.
Bera, not Bella. Bera?
Bera, I'm sorry. Yeah, King Bera, I'm sorry. Yeah. Bela is at Zoar. Can't tell the names without a scorecard.
Right.
Okay, Chris,
Mhm.
how about reading Genesis 14, 18 to 20?
Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him a tithe of all. Now the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons and take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to the Lord, God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing from a thread to a sandal strap, and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. Except only that the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion.
Okay. I'm going to let me change this up a little. Can somebody go to Psalms 110, 2 through 5? And somebody else look up Hebrews 7, 1 through 4. Reason I'm doing this, these are the only verses that say anything about Melchizedek. There's a lot of speculation on who he is, what he is, but let's take the verses and deal with them. You folks out there that are watching, you don't get to read. I know you missed that, but okay.
What did you want on Hebrews?
Say again?
What did you want on Hebrews?
Hebrews 7, 1 through 4. Okay, somebody ready with Psalms?
Yeah.
Go.
What number?
Oh, I'm sorry, 110, 2 through 5.
The Lord will extend your mighty scepter from Zion, saying, Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your troops will be willing on your day of battle. Arrayed in holy splendor, your young men will come to you like dew from the morning's womb. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. The Lord is at your right hand. He will crush kings on the day of his wrath.
Okay, that's the only other mention in the Old Testament of Melchizedek. Hebrews ready?
Yes, Hebrews. This Melchizedek was king of Salem and priest of God Most High. He met Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings and blessed him, and Abraham gave him a tenth of everything. First, his name means king of righteousness, then also king of Salem means king of peace. Without father or mother, without genealogy, without the beginning of days or end of life, like the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, go ahead and see how great.
Okay. Just think how great he was. Even the patriarch Abraham gave him a tenth of the plunder.
Okay. Opinions. Who is Melchizedek? Based on the scriptures only. I know I'm being nasty, folks, but we've got to stay within the four squares of the scripture.
I can tell you what my footnote says.
What does your footnote say?
Melchizedek is clearly a type of Christ. Everything known about him from the Old Testament is found in Genesis 14:17-20 and Psalms 110:4. He was a great king priest, and it is to his order of priesthood that Christ belongs.
Okay.
I have a footnote that says that he is actually Noah's son Shem.
Yeah, that comes from such an authoritative source as Josephus.
Yeah.
That Josephus, writing his history of the Jews, says that based on the genealogy, Shem was alive when Abraham was alive. He didn't reveal himself as Shem, he revealed himself as Melchizedek. There are other conjectures. Let me give you. If you read the Midrash from the 4th century AD, the sages had decided that he's really the archangel Michael, who is the prince of the Jewish people represented in Daniel, and Melchizedek is an archangel who greets Abraham, but he accepts tithes from Abraham. Right? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to back it up to what's actually in Scripture, not conjecture from 14 to 1600 years later. First off, we know that he's the king of a city called Salem. His name, Melchizedek, means king of righteousness in Hebrew. His name, king of righteousness. I think it's a foreshadow of Christ.
When he has the bread and the wine.
Yeah, he has the bread and wine, but that's hospitality. He's coming out to meet not only Abram, but the king of Sodom, his neighbor, outside of his city. They go down just below where the Gihon Spring is. At that time, the spring flowed out of the mountain. Hezekiah hasn't built his tunnel yet. And he's greeting a fellow king and Abram and this whole mass of people and goodies.
Yeah, but he's more than a king. He's the priest of the God Most High.
He worships in the Hebrew, he is the priest of El Elon, which means God, El Most High. Okay? He is, this is an example of monotheism that was already in Canaan at the time of Abraham. He's worshiping the same God that Abraham is acknowledging. Elohim, Yahweh. They're worshiping a single God. This is very unique in the world at this point in time, but he is a priest and a king. We get ourselves wrapped around the axle because the laws of Moses, those two are divided. At this point, most of the kings of cities were also the high priest of the city. So he's a priest king, yes, as Christ will be a priest, the high priest and king. But the Hasmonean high priests were also the kings of the Hasmoneans. So we lose that perspective that this is not just Christ only, there are other humans that have had that role. Second thing, his city is built on the mountains of Moriah, and the high place of worship in Jerusalem is the top of Mount Moriah, where the temple will be built by Solomon. And Abram will bring his son Isaac back to be sacrificed up there in the mountains of Moriah. So there's great symbolism here. The Egyptians call the Shashu the Amalekites. We would call them Amalekites in scripture. They call them the Shashu of Yahweh. So Yahweh is worshipped in southern Canaan at this time by various groups. I think he's a foreshadow. First, what I don't think is, he is not an archangel. He is not Shem masquerading as somebody else. I think if Shem was still alive and met Abraham and say, "Hi, great-great-great-grandson, I'm your great-great-great-grandfather, Shem. How's it going?" I don't think it is a theophany. I don't think Jesus Christ appeared as a king. Most of that discussion is built on without father or mother. Without father or mother means he was not the king based on heredity. He was a new man in that role. He wasn't part of the nobility, the traditional nobility of the town. He has neither a famous father nor a famous mother. He has gained this on his own power, basically. He offers hospitality and receives a tenth of the spoil. That is a tithe. That is the lesser giving to the greater by a tenth. I have conjectures, but I don't have a good Bible reason for only a tenth. He makes sure that when he turns to the king of Sodom, says, "Hey, just give me my people back and we're good." And Abraham says, "I won't let it be said that you made me rich. Everything that's yours, I return to you. Even the sandal thong is returned to you. I don't want to owe you anything." He gives a tenth to Melchizedek. He gives everything that belonged to probably the five kings that they could identify. They get it, except for what's been eaten by his men. And his associates get their split too. I would conjecture that after the king of Sodom gets everything he got back, the tithe has been paid, and his allies got their cut, there's something left for Abraham. Abram still gets something, because the copper from the Wadi Fayon and the copper from Kadesh Barnea probably didn't belong to the kings of the five kings of the plain. That he could have kept. That's cynical Harry. He does exactly what he says. He returned everything that belongs to the five kings of the valley to the king of Sodom, who's their leader. You get all the people, you get all the goodies that were yours.
Well, wouldn't the men just have gotten more? His 318 men?
That he would have divided the spoil that remains among his people. Yeah. His allies got their cut right off the top. Uh-oh, we got questions. Okay.
No, 'cause if-
Okay, we have a footnote. My footnote. The book of Hebrews presents Jesus Christ of the royal line of David as belonging to the order of Melchizedek, therefore superior to the Levitical priests. It also contains to exactly what you said about the Most High, the Semitic Turk. Thank you. I'm glad I'm doing it right. Yeah, I actually.
Was that Laura?
That was Scott. And Scott, I actually ran these notes by Brian last night to make sure that I'm within the 4 squares. This is a sticky area. I want to make very sure I'm on firm theological ground. Yeah.
No, I think that Melchizedek, being the king of Salem, Salem was not a very big town, but he's the king of it. He's also the high priest of it. I think that there is a possibility that he's a Nazarene or Nazarite. What would you
It doesn't say he's a Nazarite. It
Right,
doesn't.
but based on how Hebrew reads,
Yeah.
him and Abraham know each other.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
yeah,
that this isn't the first time that Abraham has paid tithe to him because of the service that he provides in the region, that the king Melchizedek provides in the region. I also think that Abraham did get God's permission to go and attack, because in 22 it says, "But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to the Lord, God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing." So he's saying what I told God before I went after him.
Yeah.
"I will take nothing from a thread to a sandal strap, and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say I have made Abram rich." So there he's saying, and there may be a point where as he went after him, he may have stopped in Salem and said, "Bless me, Melchizedek, because I'm going to go fight 4 armies with 318 guys."
Yeah.
So as he returns safely with everything that he wanted, he pays tithe. For what? A blessing. He received a blessing on the way up there.
That's a good
I like it.
possibility.
Yeah.
You got my vote.
And he walked right by him.
Yeah.
If you see
Oh,
the
yeah.
path that he took.
He goes right up the way the patriarchs would go, right through Jerusalem, Route 60.
Yeah.
But there's another possibility. He lives in the area under his hegemony.
Mhm.
When I go out on a raid, I got to pay the VIG, pay the 10%. Not quite as spiritual, but yeah, they know each other. They are not strangers. He's greeting Abram returning from victory. Yeah, but I don't think, as has been taught in some places, that it's a theophany of Jesus Christ meeting his forefather in the flesh.
Right.
I don't see anything in the scriptures to support that, and there are people who hold that position.
Well, and
That's
based
a
on
fun one.
based again on what Scott read in Hebrews and also what Denise read, is that we don't know a lot about Jesus' upbringing, but it's mentioned a couple of times that, and it's thought that there were times where he went out into the wilderness with wilderness priests.
Mm-hmm.
And so that may be what he kind of is.
Yeah,
And Salem's got to be itty bitty little backwater town at this time. I mean, it just so happens to be between Hebron and Jericho.
Yeah, it is not a large city. What sketchy archaeological remains, less than 1,000 people.
Mhm.
It's smaller than Jericho.
Right.
But spiritually, it's the center of the world.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of this, is we've already established Jerusalem and Babylon.
Mhm.
And the whole Bible from this point is kind of a tale of 2 cities, Jerusalem and Babylon,
Mhm.
the world and the Lord.
Right.
That's a thread you can follow.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
That's great stuff.
Okay, you can see why I wanted to prepare carefully for this one. Okay. he and his allies and his servants go back home. Everything's fine. Let's go, whoever's next. Genesis 15, 1 through 6.
Is
Whoever.
it me?
Go ahead.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I don't know who was up,
No.
but go ahead, please.
I'll read. Okay. Okay. The covenant with Abram. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him, This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the heavens and count the stars. If indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness.
This is the beginning of the Abrahamic covenant, which changes the world. God says, I am your shield and your great reward. And he's a sovereign Lord. God, the cry of his heart is, I don't have a son. Now, Lot's alive, but clearly Lot is no longer considered a potential heir, at least by his warriors. The man who will inherit my estate is my accountant, my seneschal, whatever title you want to attach to him, his executive officer, Eliezer of Damascus, who's a slave. All that he's built in his life will go to a slave. Then the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the stars. And there was no light pollution in this period. At Hebron, they didn't have street lights, not even sodium vapors. And looked up, and you could just see the Milky Way galaxy. If you can count the stars, that's how many your descendants will be. Go ahead.
Okay, so what has me perplexed is he took him outside. So that means the Lord was with Abram in his tent?
He was speaking to him in his tent. We're not told how. The only time that we have a theophany of a physical body talking to Abram is when they have lunch together outside his tent.
Right.
That's in, I think, chapter 18. But he is God is speaking to him, whether he's hearing it in his mind or if there's an audible voice and he's going, this is creepy. I don't know. He's wide awake. This is not a dream. He's talking to God, and this is reading into the scripture. So it's an opinion that makes it a heresy, that he's in prayer. He's praying.
It says the Lord came to Abram in a vision.
Okay. But it's a vision that he's awake in. And after Abram answers the Lord, God says, let's go outside. You got to see something. Look up.
Can I show you?
Sure.
So this is my print of that scene. That's my favorite.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I don't think it comes out clearly enough in the thing. I'm sorry. If you could bring that one down here, we'll put it up at the, stay. Yeah, well, I'll hold it. And then this is a print that Pat has of
Talking about.
talking to God outside of his tent. And that's in our guest room. Yeah. We do collect some souvenirs when we go to Israel.
Right.
You know, and they're always easy to carry home. Okay. I'm going to stop here. We're at 10 minutes of 8. We've been talking almost continuously for an hour and 20 minutes. And I can't do the next portion in 10 minutes. Pat's shaking her head. No way. No way, Harry, you've done this before. I would ask you to read it ahead and have your questions ready. It's chapter 15. We'll start in verse 7 the next time. Are there any other comments or questions out there? Okay. Laura Lang put up, while you guys are typing, if you want to type one in, just a comment. Hebrews is a New Testament writing of an author of Hebrews must have understood that Melchizedek had no father and mother, genealogy of some other source than the Old Testament. Yeah. I'm assuming that means that his genealogy is not given. Genealogies usually only include the important people that you want to remember. Horse thieves and liars are excluded. Okay. Well, I'll leave the machine on for about 5 minutes. We'll take up prayer requests, and then I'll be shutting down before we close with prayer. But thank you for being with us. We'll be online next week at or about 6:30. I try to start it online at 6:15 to make sure that everything's working so we can go right into the study. Again, thank you. Okay, how about prayer requests?
So I texted Diana, and she was happy that somebody was thinking about her, and she said she has praises because there was a safe delivery and a healthy baby, and her request is for safety for her traveling home, which I don't know how that's going to happen, and also sleep for everyone, which is common with new baby and new stuff. So. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to add for me. Not that I can think of right now. So, Denise, what do you have?
Okay, so this is really selfish, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I am so sick of all the mosquitoes.
It's been bad.
I've been like scratching, itching all
it's like
night. I've got them on my.
Anytime I go outside, it's like, okay,
Yes.
get lots of bats in here or something. I don't know, get something that eats all these mosquitoes.
El Elon, give us bats. I've got that.
Harry was talking about a frost, or like could we have a
I
nice
know.
little
Yeah.
cold
They're
thing that
awful.
might kill them off. So.
Yeah, that's not terribly selfish. My grandkids got bit out in the backyard Sunday afternoon. I went out to barbecue and picked up 11. It's just like, this is insane.
Exactly.
I know. I just texted Bill last night. I was at Grant's waiting for him to come home from his curling, and I'm like, I'm getting eaten alive in this house.
Yeah.
Because he has a pond, and oh god, it's like any standing water. It's a mess. I think I'm gonna look. I'm gonna see if there's something you can put in it, because we've got them at our house. They're everywhere. They're horrible.
Okay, if you have a pond, can you put live fish in it?
There's live fish at Grant's in the pond, and turtles, and
That should be doing it. I mean, that.
yeah. I don't know.
I mean, you don't want
It's driving me
you don't want to
crazy.
put a thin layer of olive oil on it, but so they can't breathe, but neither
Yeah.
can the fish.
Right.
Were you the one that asked whether there was any purpose that God made mosquitoes? Someone we know
Yeah.
came up and said, "Is there a reason why God made mosquitoes?" So,
For those of you not in New Mexico, we're having an unusual number of mosquitoes this year. It was a very wet monsoon season, and mosquitoes can breed in less than an inch of water. So,
and we're spoiled and not used to
yeah, usually the people down by the river have to put up with mosquitoes, not up here in the Northeast.
But it's their choice to live down there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Next prayer request.
it.
Actually, prayers for my good friend of many years, 25 years I've known him, Sage Stewart is his name. And he lives in California now, but we caught up on the phone last weekend, and he was living in an apartment in San Jose, California, and he'd been there for 5 or 6 years. And during that time, he developed mold and mildew spores, and he's going after he's since moved out. He's going after the landlord for what his ailments now. But let's see, I think he's 38, 39 years old. He's in rough shape. He's in really rough shape. And the doctor's appointments that he's had, his insurance is already tapped out. He's paying out of pocket at this point for lung stuff, ear stuff, nose and throat stuff, and it's pretty much cleaned him out financially. And he's having a rough time. He's a good guy. He's a real good guy. And you hate to hear things like that about good, hardworking people. It's just it's a real shame. Somebody his age. Before he moved out, he did have some spots in the house that he noticed, tested, and they did come back positive for a certain kind of mildew spore. And but yeah, he has now hearing problems. Like, it's a mess.
Wow.
Like, who knows how bad it could
Yeah.
be? And he lived there for several years. Who knows how bad it could be? So we'll see.
Okay, for me, finishing an article. I'm trying to get an article on LF published at this point. We'll see how that goes. It's somewhat of an uphill battle. Prepare us for the travels we've got coming up. And they're all fun. They're all going to be great things, but we're getting back into the pre-COVID world of travel, and we want to, do it properly.
Make good decisions.
Yes. And for all of us, the election coming up in November, pray God's will be done. And if you, down in South Valley, Mary Ingham is running for the State House. If she wins, she would be the first independent to ever win down there. But conservative lady. Her husband is running unopposed to be on the Education Commission, which, as a hoot, Stuart was in one of our very early Bible studies, and he would ask all of the questions. They would be coming from multiple directions, and free association was what he was doing. And
I think we started Bible study to help Stuart figure out things.
yeah, but his questions helped me figure out I had to do these kind of things to be ready to handle them. So preparation helps.
Also, so we should pray for Mary and Stuart.
Pray for Mary and Stuart. Pray for the election. That's all I've got.
Colin Bell.
Okay, girl, okay. You should have something.
His brother,
Yeah. Well, my brother really has terminal cancer, and he's not doing very good with it. I mean, my sister-in-law says I think he's depressed, and he says, no, I'm just sad. But he had a PET scan last week, and everything has progressed, and his chest CT, everything has progressed, and but I pray for him all the time, and we really try. I learned something new. I'm trying to find something to do to lift his spirits, and you can actually send a potato in the mail. It doesn't have to be in a box. It doesn't have to be in an envelope. It's just a potato. He makes homemade French fries, so I sent him a potato, and there's a company you can go to online, but you can go buy your own potato and mail it to anybody. I didn't know
Slap
that.
a shipping label on a potato?
You just write on there with a Sharpie marker who it's going to. And on the back, I
hilarious.
said French fry starter kit. And so I got the confirmation. It was like $16 or something, $14 for this company that mails out potatoes. And you can mail, and I thought that'll make him smile at
Right.
least.
Yeah.
You can mail Frisbees. I mean, there's a whole list of items you can mail not in the box.
That's hilarious.
If
Where do you
you
find this
look,
list at?
Google what can I mail? What can I mail without a box? I mean, what can I mail? The potatoes on there, and then it takes you to. So I'm just trying to do things that will uplift the
Smell it,
spirits. And
eggplant.
Yeah, I'm
Eggplants
gonna
are funny.
remember that for my brother's birthday.
And that's
Okay,
a
I
girl
don't
that I
have any
work
more
with figured it
questions.
out.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Wow. That was.
Oh, man.
I mean,
I've
it's
I'm
never
just
just,
thinking of all the possibilities.
That's
I know.
Oh,
I know.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
I know. Just,
Yeah, I'm-
So I can see up for this.
You're gonna have some
Yeah,
friends.
and you
Right in
get a
there.
Sharpie
Yeah.
and
What?
you cross it.
You know me. What do you mean we?